Well, last Sunday I began a message where I never did get to finish, and so we're going to go there this week. But let me just kind of sum up very much what we talked about last week. Here's the thing. We're aiming to live under the shadow of the supernatural. We want to see miracles transform our lives. We were looking to see miracles change our hearts. We're looking for miracles to be in the church. We're looking for a supernatural environment that will be in this house and will be in all the people that are part of this house, even if they're outside, that he would live in their miracles. And all of you want that. I know that. People all want to have this presence of God with them. They want to be able to move in the supernatural. But I found something, and I've seen something over the last little while that concerns me greatly, and that's this: is that they are being stopped from their destiny. They're stopped from being what God wants them to be because of trials and tribulations that come their way. And they want to be revivalists. They want to be people who live in supernatural climate. They want to move in signs and wonders. But for whatever reason, they're being stopped over and over again. And sometimes it's not because of the enemy. Sometimes it's just because of trials that come their way, and they're not able to get through and rise above. And so every week they go through a cycle of living up on the cloud 9 and then going back to the bottom. And it's just a cycle. They go 3 steps ahead, 4 back. And it's a cycle they go through, and it's sad to say people go through this their entire life as Christians, and then once they actually reach the age where they're about to go home to be with Jesus, they've done really nothing significant about their destiny. But they always wanted to. They always wanted to, and it wasn't because they didn't want to. If every time that somebody said, "Do you want to do this?" they put their hands up high. But there's something always that stops them. Now, I don't want hands to be raised here in a moment, but I'm going to ask you, is that an indicator of anything in your life? Something inside you says, "I want to go to my destiny, but I still haven't reached it anywhere near yet." I would say that represents a huge portion of the body of Christ. Challenges, difficult times come, and they're not able to get through there. They get so excited, so passionate about God, but something comes along, and it's like they get discouraged so quickly, so easily, and they fall. And God's raising up a generation, I believe, in this day that are going to be people who are going to move supernatural. There's a generation that God's calling. Honestly, there's something going on right now. If you are not moving out with God, you are going to totally miss what God has. You cannot do church the way you did church growing up. You will not be able to come to church. You will be left behind, not because God wants to, but because you will be. At the end times, God is calling his church to supernatural things. He is visiting. He's coming back to the church. If you're not moving with that, you will be left behind. You will no longer be able to do religion where it's just what you like, safe and sound, and you forget it all and you go on. You won't be able to do that. You can change churches, and God will show up at that church and do it there. He will, because this is what God is doing. There's a global move right now, you need to understand, around the world, and those people who are not ready to go with what God's doing will get left behind. I'm not saying left behind from when he comes back. I'm just saying you're going to get left behind in the move of what God's doing. I mean, that might be true. If you, listen to me, to know Christ is salvation. I have never heard so many people say in this day, so many pastors, if you prayed a sinner's prayer, you still could go to hell. You can go to church, you can tithe, and still not get to heaven. You could have stood at an altar and said a sinner's prayer, and that may not mean anything. Matter of fact, I forget who said sinner's prayers don't work. Unless there's something going on in the heart. Unless there's something going on in the spirit. Oh, yeah, it was Mark Redner. Mark said, sinner's prayer doesn't work anymore. Because too many people are just saying it, thinking that by saying it, something's going to happen. Do you want to know do you want to know that you are in heaven? Do you want to know that you're with God? You have to know God. And to know God means to live in relationship with him, a vibrant relationship with him. Are you with me? where he knows your heart and you know his heart, where you feel his love and he feels yours. It's a sharing. That's what it is. It's worship. That comes from your heart. It's adoration. It's his touching you. It's you living a life with God. That is what salvation is. It's to know him. That is eternal life. If you're here this morning and you are saying, well, you know what? I said a sinner's prayer. I'm happy with that. I just want to encourage you this morning. Maybe you should re-examine that. Do you really know God? You're saying, how do I know God? Guess what? If I'm married, I have evidence. I have a wife. There's evidence. We live together. If you're here today and you're saying, I said a sinner's prayer, but there's no evidence of it, well, I'm just saying, if there's no evidence of it, if there's no passion burning in your heart for the Lord, if no one around you knows you're a Christian, if you come to church and you're in an environment like this and you're really just bored, I'd revisit this. You may or not know the Lord. And please don't ever be secure. Don't ever let your security be, well, I said a sinner's prayer. That's not necessarily going to work for you. What God's doing in these days, he's renewing how he works in the church. And that's for those who know him. So if you're here today, I just want to encourage you. If you don't have that vibrant relationship with God growing, really revisit where you are with God. Maybe today's your day and you need to say, God, I really want to come back to that place, or I want to start that place today where you are in me and I am in that place. Anyways, I didn't plan on going there, but very quickly, we were talking last week about living under a supernatural lifestyle and not be stopped by these challenges. And here was the point. I learned something. There is a refuge place for people to live in where they can be safe from the challenges of life. There's a refuge place that I saw as I read through the book of Psalms. David found a refuge place, and every time he got attacked, every time challenges came, every time he was going down a dark road, and we've done that, dark roads, he would run to the refuge place, and he said, I'm safe. And what was so cool about that is that David did get to his destiny. I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody in this room has had as many challenges as David did. David physically had his life threatened. David was chased. He was pursued by almost the whole nation. Imagine if our prime minister said, let's just go get Jed. Let's annihilate him. I mean, he's got the whole nation and all the resources to go after Jed. Jed would have to hide pretty good. That's what it was like for David. The king said, let's go after this man. It was awful. And then people would swear, say things about him that weren't true. They would, curse him. But yet he said, when I go to my refuge place, I'm safe. When I go to the refuge place, I'm safe. I just want to say this to you. David became king because he went past all the challenges, went through the challenges. Listen to me, everybody. Your destiny depends on you being able to do that. Your destiny hinges on your ability to go through the challenges. And there's only one way you're going to be able to do that. It's by having this refuge and being able to go to that refuge place. So this morning, I want to talk about that. I want to finish up a little bit this morning. If you're going to be a revivalist, if you're going to be what God has called you to be in this season, you're going to need to have those times when everything's coming against you, that you go to the refuge place and that you hide in there, as it were, and you become safe and you can weather any storm. You can weather any storm. You don't have to be a casualty in this war. You don't have to be a casualty. If you're going to be part of the generation that God's raising up, you're going to have to be one who can go through every storm where God can count on you. And it doesn't matter what comes your way, you will make it through. But here's the deal. You will not make it through if you do not go to the refuge place. It will keep you safe. Now, how do you go to a refuge place if you can't see it? As I said last week, you don't, Google map the refuge place of the Lord and then find your way there. You just can't do it. And the first thing I said is this: understand it's a spiritual destination. It's a spiritual journey for you to go from where you are to where you're going to go, but yet it's still a journey. And understand that it's a journey that you have to determine that you're going to go on. And I said this quickly, and I'm going to go to the next point. When you feel the prongs of a challenge, or, the first thing you do is, okay, I'm going to the refuge place. The moment you feel an attack is coming, you have to say in my mind, I will not be overcome here. I am going to the refuge place. Everybody look at me. Do you know what often happens? The moment something wrong goes on in your life, most people go, and they begin to look at it very closely, and they start to suck it in till pretty soon it overwhelms them. Your first response needs to be, when a challenge comes our way, I am going to the refuge place. I will not be overcome by this. And I'm going to get there, and your heart's intention is that you do get there. Second thing I said is, and here we're going to start, is if you're going to go to that refuge place and actually get there, you have to set your focus on the refuge place. You actually have to focus on it. You actually have to put your gaze towards it. And I said this: you will always move toward that which you focus on. Everyone look at me. You have two options when a challenge or a crisis comes your way. Two places to look. One, you can look at it, or you can look upward. If you look at the challenge and go, oh my, and you keep staring at it, the more you stare at it, the more you'll move towards it. You won't move towards your help. You keep looking at it, and it's like a tractor beam that pulls you closer. And the more it gets closer to you, the worse it gets, the more it overwhelms you, and the more it becomes impossible to defeat. And pretty soon, you can't even seem to reach out. It's like you're so far away that you can't get back. And it doesn't have to be that way. You get bad news, and here's what happens. You want to look at it. You want to talk about it. You want to rehearse it. How many know I'm saying? You want to go over and over and over and play the details in your mind. You lay in bed, and instead of recounting the good things of God, you replay it over and over, and pretty soon you're in a deep hole that you can't seem to get out of. When the immediate thing you should have done is, when trials come my way, don't put my focus there. Put my focus on where the help comes from. And I said this: we live within the grasp of two realities. One is earth, which is temporal, and the other is eternal, which is unseen. Paul says we're to put our focus on there. And here's the reason why it's so important. The outcome depends on where you focus. The outcome depends on where you focus. And I've heard some victories this week of people who turned their focus, and when they turned their focus upward, victories came. It is absolutely important that where you put your focus will determine the outcome. You get a bad report from something. If that's where you put your focus, listen to me, you're empowering that place with your focus. If I look at it and say, that's it, pretty soon it'll start to take your heart. And once it's got your heart, it'll pull you in. Where you put your focus when a challenge comes, when a difficult season comes, will determine the outcome. Are you with me? And so if we focus on the issue from the seen realm, here's the deal. And this past week, I couldn't sleep one morning, and I woke up, and as I'm waking there, some things began to happen. So I took my iPad out, and I started to type some stuff out. And here's some of the things I want to share with you this morning that I got in the middle of the night. If we focus on the issue from the seen realm, that's this realm, when we see the issue, when we see the problem, and that's where we're looking, guess what will happen? As I look at it, I'm drawn near, and I'll now begin to respond to the agenda of that thing. I'll respond to it, to the agenda of that thing. I will begin to do things that are really coming from that realm, which is it's influenced by the enemy. Are you with me? If I'm looking at this thing is now influenced by the enemy. And I'm looking at it, okay, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Okay, that's what I'll do. But I'll tell you this, watch this. If you're looking at this thing here, which is an issue, and as you're looking at it, you determine this is what I'm going to do, I guarantee most likely you're responding to the agenda of the devil. Because that whole thing is being empowered by fear. It's being empowered by the God of this age. And his agenda will be to mess you up. And so you'll sit there going like this. Okay, let's just say my brother-in-law insulted me. I mean, it was awful. It was awful. My brother-in-law insulted me. And I just focus on the instant insult. Pretty soon, as I focus on that, I'm going to be going, I'll show him. I'll show him. And all of a sudden, you're doing something to insult your brother-in-law, and you think you're actually going to get back at him because it's God. All of a sudden, you're doing stuff that's going to make it worse because now you're being drawn into an agenda that's not God, and you're going to begin to respond to something that's not God. You look at your paycheck, you go, okay. You look at your bills, you go, okay. 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 There's just enough money to pay my bills. But I won't be able to tithe. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, well, I guess I won't tithe. I can pay my bills, but I can't tithe. Someone now help me. Now, whose agenda is that? So you look at your problem and you start to respond in ways that are wrong. Now I got news for you. If you keep doing that, pretty soon your life is going to be an absolute mess. Because I'm now taking my agenda from the enemy whose plan is to steal, kill, and destroy. And by the time I do that, my life is going to become an absolute mess because everything I'm doing to fix the problem is actually from the agenda of the enemy. And that's why the problem seems to get worse and worse and worse and worse because I have set my focus on that. That's where my heart now is. And because that's where my heart now is, I'm starting to hear the agenda of the enemy. And then I start to respond to him and I just make it worse. And I seal my fate even worse. Now I'm in a hole that's got dirt coming over top of me. Are you with me? How many have done it? We all have. Now here's something else I want to talk about. When we focus on the wrong thing, the wrong situation, and we respond with the wrong response, it will not bring the answer. Now watch what begins to happen. When we focus on the situation, and Pastor Jed talked about that in the house of his presence. When we focus on the situation, not only do we do the wrong things and respond in the wrong way to solve the problem, we begin to talk wrongly. And we begin to curse ourselves. I'll never get out of this. It's hopeless. I'm going to lose my business. I'm going to lose my car. I'm going to die. This pain, this disease is going to kill me. And we begin to now speak on behalf of the evil one. We begin to talk badly. It's all going to end. It's all going to burn. And we begin to speak with bad language. We begin to talk in the wrong way. And so we focus on the wrong thing. And now we begin to respond badly. And then to make it worse, we begin to talk badly. And we now begin to enforce it. And you need to understand your words either will produce life or they'll produce death. Proverbs tells us very clearly there's life and death in your tongue. So now all of a sudden what you're doing, you're not just doing the wrong things, now you're speaking the wrong things. And listen to me, it's so important because we all do it. Something tragically happens and we begin to talk about it. Talk. And I don't know if you've ever noticed the more you talk about something, the worse it feels. Talk. Honestly, talk. And by after about an hour of doing that, you feel dirty inside, you feel awful, you feel hopeless. Why? Because you're coming in an agreement with the devil. No wonder you're feeling dirty, because you're now beginning to tie a rope between you, and you're the one doing it by your tongue. It's hopeless. It's happening again, over and over. And you are beginning, if you don't watch your tongue, you're going to speak your way down a hole that you can eventually not get out of. Did you know we are actually guided by our tongue? Your life, you sometimes say, I want God, you to guide me. I got news for you. You're actually guided in many ways by your tongue, what you say. Did you not know that your tongue can set a whole forest ablaze? Did you not know that your tongue can actually speak death? See, we actually are guided by our tongues. So, a challenge comes. Okay, I want to be living under the shadow of miracles. I want to move in signs and wonders. A challenge comes. I start to focus on it. I can't get my eyes away. I can't get and now I try to fix it. I'm trying to fix it. I look at it. Okay, I got to do this. I panic. I got to do this. I got to panic. And it gets worse and worse. Now I start talking about it. And I talk endlessly about it. Pretty soon I'm sinking deeper. Because you're now sealing your faith. You're actually speaking, not just acting, you're now speaking the plan of the enemy, and it will almost come about to happen because you've actually set yourself in motion to make sure it happens. Our words. That's why when we give thanks, and Rosemary talked about that yesterday, we had revival last night. If you weren't here, sorry. Honestly, you can declare thanksgiving instead, and it'll change everything. I'll talk about that in a moment, but your tongue, your words, everything's falling apart in my life. Everything's falling apart in my life. And please, just don't look there. Pastor, but you don't know my life. I have to talk bad about myself. Everything in me wants to say bad about myself. You don't know. Well, you don't know mine either. And we just keep speaking bad about ourselves, bad about how endless it'll be. I'll never get out of this hole. And you direct yourself further and further down the hole. I came across a passage which you need to have. I need to have. Psalm 17:3. David said, I have purposed that my mouth will not transgress. I love that. I'm going to put that on my fridge. Wherever I go, I have purposed that my mouth will not transgress. Say it with me together. I have purposed that my mouth will not transgress. And that doesn't mean saying swear words. That means not talking negatively about your situations. Everyone look at me with a smile. Of course, I want to see me. I have purposed that my mouth will not transgress. I won't let my mouth start speaking negative when a challenge comes. I won't speak hopeless talk. I won't speak like I never get out. I won't talk that way. David knew the potential for his mouth to get him in trouble. So he said, I have purposed that my mouth will not transgress. I made that my own purpose. I'm going, God, this mouth is going to be safe. I won't talk about people negatively. I won't talk about you negatively. I won't talk about my own situation. I will not have my mouth be used against me. If there's crisis going on in my life, I won't speak about it. I won't give it power in my life. And so David said, I have purposed. How many have you have let your mouth get out of control in your life? All of us have. This is honest. You can change your life if you change your talk. I am not kidding you. You will change circumstances if you say, I have purposed that my mouth will not transgress. Matthew 12:33 says this, we're going to be judged by every careless word we speak. Wow. My God, guard my mouth. So David said, my response is, I have purpose that my mouth will not transgress. So what do? If you don't focus on the wrong things, you don't look downward. If you don't look, what do? You turn your focus upward. Okay, you with me? You turn your focus upward. You move your focus to eternal or heavenly realities, that which is unseen, Paul said. You take your focus off the challenge and onto the reality of the eternal, where the answers lay. Now, I'm going to get to somewhere in just a moment here, but this is going to be good. So I want you to sit on the edge of your seat. When you have a challenge, immediately, I cannot look there anymore. I have to turn my focus. Okay? My marriage is falling apart. Not mine, but no, I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to look at heaven where there's all the answers I need. I know by looking at this, I'm not going to solve it, because I know what will happen is I'll try to make it work and it won't work. And then I'll talk about it, it won't work. I got nothing to lose but to go like this. So I now set my heart and mind on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God, and I begin to make that my focus. Come on, we're talking about going to the refuge place. How do you get that way? How's there a refuge? Trials come. Don't focus on it. Lift my head upwards. Lift my spirit upwards. Lift my thoughts. They go to God. Now, watch this. It sounds good. But when the challenge comes, everything in you wants to keep looking there. I mean, everything in you wants to keep looking at the bad report. Do you know why that is? It's because there's a seed of the carnal man that's been within us, and it wants to reign in you. And so it's trying to get you to keep looking at this, because it wants you to go down the pit. So immediately, if I'm going to get to the refuge, I determine I'm going there. I see the problem. Whew, change my focus. Change my focus. You know why? Because when I change my focus to heaven's reality, it has answers for me that this does not have. When I change my focus, there's answers where, look, that's why David said in Psalm 16:8, I've set the Lord always before me. So what do you focus on? Okay, so you're not going to focus on that. You're going to focus on, but is there some things that we can actually focus on specifically? Here's what I suggest. First of all, focus on things that you know of God's character. Watch this. When you know him, you can trust him. Everybody with me? I'm going to go somewhere pretty soon that's going to shake your bones, so stay with me. Don't start thinking about turkey. Some of you already had your turkey yesterday, so you're good. Okay? When you know him, you can trust him. So if you don't trust him, what would that say? Say it loud. Oh my goodness. So every time I don't trust him, that means I don't really, ouch. Someone say ouch. When you know him, you can. So if you have a challenge and you don't want to focus on that, you focus up here, but the only way you can actually do that is if you trust him. But to trust him, you've got to, What can you know about him? Let me just mention some. He's always good. These are things you can know about God. He's always good, so he's not going to leave you there. You can know he's a good God. So that means everything he has in mind for you is for good, so he's not going to let you hang. You can know that God is for you. He's not against you. God actually loves you incredibly. He's on your side. He's fighting for you. You know, I mean, when you stand there and you get this report or you see something bad, you go, God's fighting for me. He's on my side. There's some people actually think they're getting punished by God. Oh my, then you're in trouble. If now this happens and he's against me, he finally got me. No. You need to know that he is on your side and he's fighting for you. He's always on your side. You can know he's love. You can know that he's faithful. He's not going to drop the ball on you. He's light. You can know that he's light. He's going to shine on you. You can know that he does not lie. So when his word says he'll come through for you, he's not a liar. He cannot lie. If you know him, you can So when the challenge comes to you, the reason you're able to focus on things above is because you know him and you trust him. How about his character? I mean, how about his promises, I should say? What kind of things? Focus on his promises. What are some of his promises? He will never leave you or forsake you. He promised that to you. Another promise, he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He doesn't change. Another one, he'll never leave you or your seed begging for bread. How many of you have ever quoted that when you're doing your finances? My kids look hungry. By his stripes we're healed. He said that he would open the windows of heaven and bless you. See, when a challenge rises that's trying to steal your joy and trying to take everything from you, you cannot focus on it. You have to focus on him. But in order to focus on him, you have to know him, because to know him is to trust him. And you trust his character. How many know when you know somebody and somebody says they did that, you go, I just can't believe that. I know that character. I know his character. She would not do that. I know their character. I know they just wouldn't do that. And I'm certain that you got this wrong, because I know that person. There's just not a chance that he robbed a bank. There's not a chance he stole from his company. There's just not a chance. This man would eat off the ground before he would steal a toothpick from a restaurant. I know him. I know his character. I can vouch for him. See, and until you know God that way, you're going to have a hard time to go from here to there. So you need to know his character, and you need to know his promises. Psalm 9:10 says this. Now here's where I want everybody to just wide awake. No one's sleeping. No one. Psalm 9:10 says, those who know your name trust in you. Everybody think about that. Those who know your name trust in you. Why do we not look to him when the challenge comes? We would rather choose to look at the problem. Those who know your name trust in you. So that would say, if you don't trust in him, then you probably don't know his name. And to know him is salvation. So it's a pretty big deal. Everybody stay with me. The problem is this. When a challenge comes, and we want to look at that, and we refuse to look upward, and we refuse to trust in him by looking upward, the problem we do not trust because we actually don't know him. See, I realized that this was going to open up a can of worms today. Because we're just trying to find a refuge place. But I can't get you a refuge place if you don't know him. If you don't trust him, honestly, everybody look at me. Honest, if you don't trust God, that would say you don't know him. Because Psalm 19:10 says, or 9:10 says, those who know your name trust in you. If I choose fear as my ally, if I choose worry and anxiety, if I go there, it's telling me I don't believe God is going to solve this problem for me. I don't believe he's going to do it. I believe I have to do it myself. Otherwise, I'd get my hands off of that and I would look here. Because those who know him trust in him. And if he said all these things, I will care for you, I will never leave you, and his promise and his character lines up. If I cannot trust in him, to look to him, that would say to me, I do not know him. Am I correct on that assumption? Which opens up a bigger Pandora's box. Right? Now watch this. I'm going to share something I think is really significant. The problem I think we have found in the church is that we've learned not to trust God. We've actually learned not to trust him. There's actually a deep-seated belief in the church that he won't come through for us. As I was in prayer this week, I just began to see this, that one of the issues here, the reason we keep looking at this and are not willing to go up there is there's a deep, unseated unbelief in the church. There's an unbelief in the church so big that we love God, but he won't come through for us. There's this actually belief that he will not come through for us. We don't trust our God. There's this real big situation. Everyone look at me, okay, everybody? We actually don't think he'll come through for us. I want to look in your eyes now. I'm going to come down and look in your eyes. So if you're sleeping, it's going to be hard. Really, I want to look in your eyes. I believe there's doubt in the church. I believe there's a spirit of unbelief that we actually believe God won't come through for us, that he can't, he's powerless. We actually believe that. We actually believe he's not big enough to fix my situation. Love these mics. We actually believe that he's not big enough for me. There's actually a belief that I'm actually stronger than God. Really, I'm stronger than him because I can't trust him because he's going to let me down. We really believe that. We do. That's why we don't look to him. We actually believe that I can't look to him. I have to do something. I have to fix it myself. That's why I do what I do. That's why I won't look to him. That's why I won't go to house of his presence. That's why I won't focus on him, because nothing's going to happen anyways. I actually believe I got to do something because he won't come through for me. There's actually this unbelief. We don't believe in God. We think we do, but we don't believe him when the crunch comes. We believe enough to think that we're saved, but not enough to focus on him when the challenge comes, to get our hands off and let him do it. Because those who know him trust his name. Are you with me? Maybe the issue when we come through those challenges is not that we have to get past the challenge. It's that we got a deeper issue, is that we don't really know the God whom we serve. We say we do, but see, I can't trust him to take my eyes off the problem and set it up there, because I don't actually think he's going to come through for me. And while I'm busy looking there, this thing's going to kill me over here. That's what we're thinking. That's what we're thinking. I have to look at that because it's going to get out of control. I can't afford to look to God and pretend that didn't exist. I'm not saying pretend it didn't exist. I'm just saying don't look at it. Don't spend all your energy looking at that. I'm wondering how many people in the church actually believe their God and trust him. I mean, we should be a generation of people going crazy right now, but we're a generation limping along like we're barely surviving. And I think the issue is not that these challenges come our way. Our issue is we don't trust our God. That's why David said, those who know his name trust in him. For some reason, we always think, I have to do it because God's going to let me down. I have to do something. I have heard it over and over already, that this thing of his presence, and we're talking about it, in his presence is all that we need. People actually believe it, but they still need to help God. I've had people say, you know what, that's not enough. They're not convinced his presence is powerful. They're not convinced his presence is powerful. They're yet to be convinced his presence is strong and mighty. They're not convinced. For a lot of people, this is because they're religious. They have not met their God yet. They've not yet met their God, and they've not seen him come through for them in a mighty way. They've not experienced the mighty hand of God moving upon them. And so for them, their whole church experience is more religious than it actually is knowing their God. So a challenge comes my way. I have an opportunity to get my focus off of it, and it's easy to do if I know my God. But it's hard to do if I don't know it. When I go to him, he'll help me. Hallelujah. Sorry, Mary. And Kathleen, wherever she is. Sunday school. Seriously, am I right? Those who know his name will trust in him. So remember, we're going to the refuge place. Do you know what? It's not that hard to do it if you trust your God. But it's terrible to do it if you don't trust him. I'm praying that we're going to get to a place where we trust him. Our first go-to is immediately run to the refuge because he'll keep me safe. I know him so well, he'll never let me down. I trust him. I trust my life with him. Come on. I trust my life with him. He'll never let me down. And I know that in his presence is joy. I know that. I'm absolutely convinced of it. I can run to him. He'll care for me. Why do I have to look at this issue? Why do I have to spend every waking moment thinking about how bad it is? No, I focus on him where the answers is. He said he will never let his seed beg for bread. He will never let me fall to my knees. He will keep me. He will sustain me. He will hold me. He will give me life. He will shelter me I know that I can run to him and he will do it for me. But I can't get my eyes off of this thing if I think when I look to him, he's going to drop the ball on me. Oh, he's so good. He's so good. I have seen miracle after miracle as I've trusted him. I've seen miracle after miracle after miracle. Michelle, I'm going to just share one testimony that you just, if I can, I hope I can. I didn't ask, but I hope I can. But one of her concerns a few weeks ago was, where am I going to live? The shelter told me I only have 1 year here and that's half gone. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? How many say that's a real issue? Got a couple kids. Almost gave you another kid there. Got a couple of girls who got, and when we're preaching this, take your focus, put it there. No, I better do something, I better work. No, I'm not saying she did, but that's what we could do. And I'll build a house in the wilderness. I'll do something. I'll do everything. I'll spend everything I have. I'll steal from the store to get this. And I'll do everything. This week they came to her and said, oh, by the way, no rush. You can stay here as long as takes to finish your schooling. I'm telling you, church, when you get your eyes off your problems and you lift them up there, that's why David said, lift your eyes to the hills where your help comes from. Am I talking to people who are hearing this morning? Our God will always be a refuge for you. He will always be a refuge. I'm going to end with this. Psalm 73, number 3. When you run to the refuge, it's a place to encounter the presence of God. And in the presence of God, your answers will come. Point 3. In the presence of God, you will encounter him. He will become your refuge. Asaph, and again, Pastor Jed's been sneaking on my computer and stealing my messages. I leaned over when he was talking about Asaph. I said, I'm talking about Asaph. It's because God's talking about Asaph. And he wants you to hear it twice. Number 1, when you've determined, I'm going to get to the refuge, okay? Everybody with me. Challenge comes. I'm determined I'm going to be safe. I will not be swallowed by this thing. I will not have myself be defeated. Amen? Number 2, when you've set your focus on things above, here's what happens. Number 3, you will find the place of refuge. And that place of refuge will be an encounter in the presence of the Lord. And in the presence of the Lord, you will find shelter. Are you with me? When your focus is right, and it's right because you know your God and you trust him, when you've done all the things that you're supposed to do, and you're walking in that place with God, watch what happens. God comes in, renews your hope, renews your vision, your clarity, and it protects your heart. Asaph, back to Asaph, Psalm 73. I don't have time to read it. Asaph was a son of Obed-Edom. You know Obed-Edom, the man who housed the ark and lived the life of blessing because of it. Obed-Edom became a powerful writer of the Psalms, but he went through a time in his life when he started to question. He started to go through difficult moments. He started to think, well, God, you're not going to come through for me. God, I'm going to have to do this myself. I will have to fix whatever. These unrighteous people, they're prospering, and the righteous people, well, they're not. They're watching the unrighteous prosper. And he's getting very discouraged. He's going through a deep hole, a dark place in his life. Asaph, a man of God, slides down to a dark place in his life. And he's starting to envy with anger the unrighteous, because he says, they're prospering, I'm not. The ungodly are getting ahead, but we, the godly, are not. And he's in a dark place. He's in a bad place. And something happens. Asaph is going on saying all these things. Then he says, my mind could not understand. I was discouraged. I was depressed. I was in a dark, dark hole. Everything seemed bleak until. Say it, until. Until, he said, I came into the sanctuary of God. Everybody look at me. Why would it change when he comes into a sanctuary? Because it's a building? Because it's pretty? Because it's lovely stonework? Oh, my life was falling apart, but now that I see the brickwork, I'm good. Now that I see the carpet in this house, it's wonderful. Everything makes sense now. Now I finally got a hold of the wood. I see the wood. I understand the wood. Now, there we go. Everything was a mess in my life until I entered the sanctuary. Why was that case? Because the sanctuary was where the ark was. The presence. The presence. Until I came in the presence, everything changed for me. I entered the presence, and that which I thought was out of control in my life changed. Everything was going bad. I had challenges. So I eventually got my focus off of them onto the Lord. I restored my trust in him. I came into his presence, and then my eyes opened up and everything was safe. I'll tell you a story, and then I close. Many of you know Greg Bukes, Greg and Zandre. They're not here these days, but in the early days of House of His Presence, they were coming. He would come on a Thursday night. And I remember one very clearly. I just was reminded this morning as I was sitting there going over this. And he's a computer. That's what he does. He does the computer for a company, a lunch lady, and he does all the computer work. And one day he had a problem, and if he has got a problem, no one's ordering from the entire company. So if he doesn't get that computer, that website going, no one can order. That means no business the next day. That means trouble. He was frustrated for 8 hours working, and he's a computer guy, and he's working like mad. And he was supposed to lead House of His Presence that night. And at 5 to 6, I said, Greg, are you coming? You're the leader. I'm coming. And he was so frustrated, he just finally quit looking at his computer, threw everything down, and ran to the church, got in here, shared a word out of no faith at all, because he was frustrated all day about his computer, began to worship God, the presence of God. He laid down, and God said, here's what you need to do. He went home after House of His Presence, and in 2 minutes had it all solved. But all day long, for 8 hours, he slaved. He was frustrated. He was angry. He was all that. Finally, he comes to House of His Presence a few minutes late because he couldn't do it. In the presence of God, immediately God said, here's what you need to do. Went home, within 2 minutes, solved the problem. How long will you go with unbelief, church? How long will I go with unbelief, not believing that I can trust him? He can keep me. He can make me safe. I love this passage in Psalms, and I end with this. Psalms 97:5. Mountains melt like wax in the presence of the Lord. Stand.